Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah, I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Yeah. Oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins. Can't relax. Original. I am not the same as the.
And welcome to this Monday edition of Pucks Across Borders Daily NHL Betting Show. It is good to be back. All last week off, we are back. Lots to get into between the whatever happened last week, what's coming up this week. Lots to get to in the world of the NHL. Off last week, full disclosure, I am moving. I'm in the middle of moving, and last week was a complete write-off for me. So you know what? We both got busy lives, took the week off, took care of personal business. Now we're back, ready to get going. Can't wait to talk to you, Andre. Missed you, bro. How you doing, man? Good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you. It's been a while. Might have to temporarily remove that daily tag from our show, but
Yeah.
it's going very well.
Well, as a self-centered Toronto sports fan, breaking news. You see this?
How breaking are we talking?
We're talking like 20 seconds ago.
Oh, yeah, no.
15 minutes ago was speculation. 14 seconds ago is 1,000% confirmation. Anthony Santander. Santander? I got to get that pronunciation
Santander.
right. What's that?
Santander.
Santander.
Yeah.
That's too ethnic for me. I can't. I'm too self-centered to figure that one out. But my point is, he's a Toronto Blue Jay, and we get nothing nice. We're always second fiddle. We're always used and abused to get more money out of the Dodgers. And now finally, or the Mets or whoever, and now we finally, is he Juan Soto? Is he Shohei Ohtani? No, but still pretty good baseball player, and he's a Blue Jay. We'll probably still suck and miss the playoffs, but you know what? It feels good. This feels like a win. Do you have any breaking thoughts on this not important breaking news?
I have thoughts on Santander. I just saw it was a 5-year deal. I'm not sure if I would buy that. I don't want to kill your optimism, though. So congrats. He's a power guy. You're going to get at least 30 homers from him. It's a good, nice middle of the lineup bet. You know, you already have Vladdy. You have Bichette, should be healthy coming back. He's a good hitter when he's healthy, obviously. Jay's had some nice pieces come out of nowhere and play really well for him last year. So that lineup could be productive again after this year was a disaster, to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, listen, man, you don't have to worry about ruining my optimism. The Blue Jays will do that by the second week of April. So you're fine. Still want Ross Atkins to be fired and still think this team's a disaster. But you know what? We got to win. This is a good win, just something positive, and it feels good because, quite frankly, I could care less. I have never cared less about the Toronto Blue Jays than I do right now. That being said, let's move on. 9 games in the NHL today. MLK Day, specifically in the U.S. I want to honor what that represents. And just great for basketball and hockey to have games all day long. Really, really good for both sports. So let's get right to it, man. We're not going to go through all the games right now. We got things we got to talk about within the league. Lots of playoff races. Lots of, Connor McDavid might be suspended. We'll talk about that. Lots to get to. I know you've been sitting on some Detroit Red Wings hot takes for like a month, so we're going to get to that. But There is a game at 1 o'clock. The San Jose Sharks are in Boston. So we're going to get to that game right now so that everyone can place their bets before the game starts. And then we'll double back and talk about what is going on in the league. San Jose Sharks in Boston, it was plus 195. It is now plus 188. The Bruins was minus 230 now, or minus 240, now is minus 230. Minus 1.5 for Boston's plus 116. I'm so mad about this. Plus 1.5 for San Jose is minus 142. It was minus 134, and it bumped up on me, minus 142. The over 5.5 is minus 124. The under is plus 102. Andre, take it away, man. First betting take in a week. I missed hearing it. What do you got? San Jose in Boston in about half an hour from now.
Yeah. So both of these teams kind of on our unreliable scale. Just in general, we don't like taking either of them. Maybe San Jose a little bit more, which is kind of terrifying to say out loud. But you look at the Sharks, they're back to shark business, swimming at the bottom, if you will. Just a bunch of uncompetitive losses dating back to late December. The culprit, they're not really scoring. They scored 6 against the Red Wings. We're going to get to why that's not really relevant in a second. Had a 3-goal game against the Devils on January 4th. Other than that, 2 multi-goal games, or 2 2-goal games to be more specific, and a bunch of 1s and 0s. I'm not talking about binary. So that's not good. It's really not good. Their offense is lifeless right now, and you look what the Bruins are doing lately. They're kind of lighting the lamp. Even in that recent loss, the 5-6 shootout loss to Ottawa, they scored 5 goals in 60 minutes. That's more times than not that's going to win you games. When you're playing the Sharks, that's going to win you 99% of games, I'd have to imagine. Don't have the exact stat. The Bruins this year, they scored 4 against the Leafs. They scored 4 against the Islanders. They scored 4 against the Panthers. They scored 6 against Tampa, and then they had that 5-goal game against Ottawa. There's only a few really rough performances for them offensively, and I believe that if their offense continues to perform to the way it has against a lot better competition than San Jose, they're going to be fine. And then you look at the head-to-heads just between these teams recently, and the Bruins have absolutely smoked the Sharks. And this is going back to the 2010s. I genuinely don't remember the last time the Sharks beat the Bruins. And looking at the games, there was one game in 2021. There's one game in 2019. They were decided by 1 goal. The other 8 of the last 10, so to speak, the Bruins won by multiple goals. Again, this dates back to the 2010s. So I'm taking the Bruins minus 1.5 here. Their offense, I think, is just too much for the Sharks right now.
Interesting. Yeah. My favorite bet was the complete opposite. San Jose plus 1.5. Understand what you're saying with regards to the Sharks. Can't deny any of it. Boston, I know San Jose is not really scoring right now, but Boston's not stopping pucks either. This goaltending, I do not trust it at all. And Boston, I don't trust at all. Listen, man, they had that game against Ottawa. They had it. I watched it. They had it. And they completely let it slip away. That is an inexcusable. Ottawa should not have gotten 1 point, let alone grab the full 2 points. That was all Boston all day, and they let it get away from them, and I just can't let that go right now. My favorite bet was San Jose plus 1.5. It is now up to minus 142. Still not awful if that like minus 142 is something that you're not worried about. I recommend betting it 100%. I personally don't like that price, which is why I do think this total is a little low. I like this over 5.5 at minus 124. This is my new favorite bet. I like that over 5.5 minus 124. I do think what you're saying is absolutely correct. Boston is going to get pucks in the net. I think San Jose will too in this one. I don't trust Boston's defense right now. I don't trust their goaltending. And so I think this is an easy over 5.5 at -124. To add in that, the one guy who is consistently scoring right now is David Pastrnak. He's plus 105, 4 goals in his last 5 games, I believe. He's plus 105, so I like him to get a goal this afternoon. Again, that puck drops in about 22 minutes time. All right, I'd like to remind everybody this show is brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Right now with our promo code Sports Addict, get 10% off whatever sports card you want in the entire First Round Collectibles store. They have an ongoing sale up to 50% off tons and tons of cards. And with their promo code Sports Addict, not only do you get 10% off of regular priced items, but sales items as well. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com today. Use promo code Sports Addict for 10% off your order. Firstroundcollectibles.com. Sports cards for sports fans, First Round Collectibles. All right, man, let's get into it. Lots to get into. We'll quickly go over only 3 games in the NHL yesterday. Ottawa beat the Devils 2-1. Rangers lose to the Canadiens 5-4 in what was maybe one of the most entertaining games of the year. That was a phenomenal hockey game. And the Dallas Stars beat the Red Wings 4-1. Andre, I know you've been sitting on something for a while. What do you want to talk about? I know what you want to talk about, so it's a completely leading question. Hit us, bro. What's been on your mind? Been a while.
Ooh, what I have to talk about dates back to last week. Dates back to the Detroit Red Wings right before they played the San Jose Sharks. Now, Detroit would lose that game because the Sharks are their daddy. The Sharks swept them this year. I don't know what it is. It's just a thing. I think they allowed 11 goals between those 2 games, too. It was really brutal. But before then, their new coach, Todd McClellan, coached 8 games with the team. In those 8 games, he accomplished something that the Detroit Red Wings had not done in over a decade. They had a 7-game winning streak going into that Sharks game. Their last 7-game win streak, January of 2012. 2 guys from that team are Hall of Famers. They were in the Western Conference when that happened. The Kings had not yet won a Stanley Cup, ever in franchise history. Chris Kreider had not yet made his NHL debut. Todd Bertuzzi was on that team. His nephew is 30. He's about to turn 30 for the Chicago Blackhawks. 13 years. How do you go 13 years without winning 7 games?
That's insane.
13. They were in the Western Conference.
I didn't realize
there are so many people on this planet that don't even remember Detroit being in the Western Conference.
I didn't realize they were in the Western Conference that short a time ago. Like, I know 13 years isn't short, but I thought they were in the Western Conference like in the early 2000s. That's crazy.
Well, that was their last year in the Central. That was right before the lockout. Yeah. Insane. 2012. So I know it's over now. I think they've lost a couple in a row.
Yeah, 2 in a row.
Good. But the Red Wings, they got hot. They're, this mosh pit of the Eastern Conference that you love to talk about that we're going to get to.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They propelled themselves up. They weren't in it. They're now currently 5 points back with no games in hand because there's no room for error right now for any of these 500 teams. But 7 wins in a row, they were doing everything right. It was the team we expected going into the year almost, where they were scoring goals. The goaltending carousel that's been their strength this year somehow was doing what it was supposed to do. They beat, teams in front of them. They beat Columbus, Pittsburgh, Washington, Ottawa. They beat Florida before they lost the last two. We got a glimpse of what the Red Wings were supposed to be. 8 games. When McClellan got that job, we were like, okay, it's going to take him a few games to figure it out. He didn't get to practice with them for that whole freeze. Team had issues, whatever. No, he figured it out pretty much right away. So clearly the old regime was just doing way too much, because this guy comes in and they just immediately take off. And I know they've stumbled a bit since then, but it's comforting to know where they are and that they have that in them. They have tangible success, tangible hot streak, and they're right there in the thick of it. So Detroit's in a good spot right now. I know they lost their last 2. I know they're 5 points back or whatever, but they have that heater. They have that in them with a brand new coaching staff. When things really start to gel, I think that's going to be a good team.
And you know what, man? Like that game yesterday, like you lose to the Sharks. I know the Sharks have, to take a page out of your book, they have the tendency to bite. Okay, not bad. But you know, you lose to the Sharks. That's a tough one. That game yesterday against Dallas, they were the better team for the majority of that game. Like I mean, that might be a little bit strong, but like Dallas started well. 3 goals in the first period, got off to the big lead. From the second period, specifically halfway through the second period, right to the end of the game, that was Detroit's game. They outshot Dallas, I think 34-24 or 34-25, something like that. Detroit played really well, especially in the last 30 minutes of that hockey game. Dallas just has guys who score when they need to score, and they have one of the best goaltenders in the league. And that's what Detroit ran into last night. So you lose to San Jose, that's on you. But that game last night, Detroit could have easily, if they could have gotten a couple more saves at the beginning of that game, Detroit easily could have been in a position to win the hockey game last night. Andre, are you still with me? I believe Andre has disappeared here for a moment. So yeah, I 100% agree. I feel like Detroit could have absolutely won that game last night, and it's really interesting going into the conversation of the rest of the Eastern Conference. Now, when Andre is back with me and ready to go, he's gonna laugh because I cannot stop talking about this Eastern Conference playoff race. I find it so fascinating. Last year, we had kind of the same deal, but it felt like a lot of these teams just didn't want to make it. And they just didn't want to make it. So everyone's kind of fighting, everyone's kind of battling, but everyone's kind of losing at the same time. This year, you're seeing fresh blood. Last year, Ottawa was out of the mix early. Columbus was out of the mix early. Montreal was out of the mix early. Rangers, Boston, they were at the top. They weren't going anywhere. Philadelphia, Detroit, they were kind of hovering around all year. Pittsburgh kind of brought themselves back into the conversation and then kind of faded away. Buffalo was in the conversation. If you remember last year, if you were following this show, then I made the stupid, $20 bet that Buffalo would make it to the playoffs. And that obviously didn't happen. This year, first of all, with regards to Ottawa, what really, and again, if you watch the show for any length of time, that I have a very, very up and down love-hate relationship with the Ottawa Senators. And throughout the beginning of this year, it was kind of same old, same old. Now, Ottawa and Buffalo are two teams where we seem to always have the same conversation. Always. This is the year. They got to make it this year. There's no more rebuilding. There's no more retooling. This is the year. They got to make it. And they just never do, especially Buffalo. But Ottawa's been in that conversation the last few years as well. This year, Ottawa, Buffalo both stumble out of the gate, and Buffalo stays there. Ottawa, and we've talked about how well they're playing. There's still moments where I'm just like, I still don't really trust it. Don't really know. Then Allmark gets hurt. And even more so, you're like, don't really know what, to do with that. This like Maryland kid comes up. He's playing phenomenal. But then yesterday you have to put Forsberg in. He's been the definition of lukewarm. Never hot, sometimes cold, but just kind of in the middle. You don't know what you're going to get from him. The Ottawa Senators this weekend come back. I just want to make sure I get this exactly right. Against the Boston Bruins. They get up. So Ottawa gets up 2-0. Boston comes back. The game goes to 3-3. Then Boston goes up 5-3. So Ottawa has the lead. They let it slip away. Boston comes back. Boston's up 5-3. Less than 4 minutes to go. Nick Jensen scores. Picked him up on my fantasy wire Saturday morning. That felt good. Makes it 5-4. And with like 12 seconds left, Josh Norris ties the game, sends it to overtime, where the Ottawa Senators win in a shootout. Now, on the one hand, shame on Boston. I already talked about this. Boston should not have lost that game. Ottawa should not have had even 1 point, let alone 2. But Ottawa fights back, not only get the point, get the 2 points, and they get the win. The next day, you're thinking scheduled loss. You're playing the Devils on the road. New Jersey, they had a tough game against Philadelphia Saturday afternoon. Feels like a game the Devils should kind of win. Now, the Devils are another conversation because they've been reeling lately as well. Ottawa, Anton Forsberg goes in the net. The shots were 17-2 for the New Jersey Devils going into the second period. After the first period, 17-2. So without even knowing the final score, you look at the shot clock at the end of the game, and mind you, like I just said, Devils leading the shot clock 17-2 after 20 minutes. The Devils outshot Ottawa 26-20. 26-20, which means that 18-9 for the rest of the game. Ottawa scores the first goal. The Devils tie it up in the second period, and in the opening couple minutes of the third period, Artem Zub scores to get the win for Ottawa. So where I'm going with all this is, as much as I've been hard on Ottawa over the years, specifically over the last couple of years on this show, those 2 wins over the weekend, back to back, against Boston, coming back, and against the Devils, in a game where the game was pretty even for the last 40 minutes, but that first 20 minutes was all New Jersey, and they survive it. Anton Forsberg finds a way to not allow a single goal, and Ottawa finds a way to win that game. Super impressive, and it's weekends like that, 2-game stretches like that, that just make me believe in this team, more and more. And then we move on to the Columbus Blue Jackets, where Columbus Blue Jackets lost in overtime the other night, 7-2-1 in their last 10 games, 16-5-3 at home. On the road, it's the exact record, but opposite. They're 6-12-4 on the road, 16-5-3 at home. a goal differential of 1, which is what we know about Columbus, right? They score a bunch of goals, they give up a bunch of goals. It's kind of par for the course. 22, 17, and 7. 51 points. Ottawa has 52. Those two teams right now sit in the wild card spots. And you know, I just look at Ottawa, Columbus, and then you have Montreal as well, where they won yesterday, 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. This Dobish kid, this Jacob Dobish, if you haven't had a chance to watch this kid play, tough night last night against New York, still found a way to get the win. But this Montreal team, I said it at the beginning of the season, I thought that this team was good enough to just stick around the playoff race, hang around the playoff race. And after a really, really tough start, that's exactly what they're doing. And so, to me, this Montreal team has just much of a right to claim a playoff spot as Columbus does, as Ottawa does. This Montreal team has battled their way back into the mix, 1 point out of the playoffs as we speak. And if you're asking me between those three teams, Ottawa, Columbus, Montreal, do two of those three teams make the final spot? Like the final two spots. That's a conversation that's really going to be curious for me into the final half of this season, because right behind them, you have the Rangers and you have the Boston Bruins. Now, I believed for the last couple months, Boston was done writing them off. I'm way quicker to write off Boston than I am to write off the Rangers. And we've had, you know, Andre's a big Rangers guy. We've had these conversations quite a bit. I'm not writing off the Rangers. I think Andre is. I mean, you know, he's a fan, so he'll you know, be here when the sun rises for sure. But to me, you know, you look at like Ottawa, Columbus, Montreal, I believe in the Rangers. I think they'll figure it out. They're only 3 points back of a playoff spot right now. I think those are your four teams. Detroit's coming on. They got a little bit, you know, like, you know, a little bit higher to climb. They're 5 points back of a playoff spot right now. We just talked about the Red Wings and what they've been able to do. Welcome back, brother. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Sometimes laptops crash, man. That's happened to me 1,000 times.
Yeah, it's really crazy when, you know, it crashes and you can't even turn it off, but it's not on. So you're just staring at a black screen and blinking.
Yeah.
Lights. Yeah.
Yeah, what's been happening to me lately is I'm like halfway through an article and all of a sudden I just can't move my mouse and it just stays like that for 10 minutes and then turns off. I don't know.
Yeah,
so,
for a second there, you know, I just thought I got hacked, you know. There's a shutdown. Someone's mad I lost some money. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, DraftKings are coming after you.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of that conversation you heard or were here for, because quite frankly, I don't know how. I'll just full disclosure, like live on air. I have no idea how long we were waiting there for. I just looked over and saw 2, and I was like, "Oh, true, 2." But I'm just basically saying that Ottawa, the weekend they had coming back from Boston, beating the Devils, where that first period against the Devils probably should have sunk them. They found a way to keep the puck out of the net, came back to win the game. Columbus, despite losing the other night, Columbus has been playing well. Right now, Ottawa, Columbus, Montreal. I think this is a further conversation for another day, and this is kind of where I was going, was Ottawa, Columbus, Montreal. Do you think 2 of those teams make it into the playoffs? Because you have Boston and the Rangers are right behind it. I don't know if you're on the same page as me. I believe in the Rangers more than I do the Bruins. And then you just talked about the Red Wings coming up. The Flyers, I think, I used to be hard on the Flyers. Something kind of clicked in my mind recently where I just think Philadelphia, they are the team they were last year. They're not in a place to really take that next leap. Now, maybe they get hot and end up in the playoffs, but I feel like as a management staff, they're kind of content with where they are right now. This is all part of the plan. So it's just really interesting watching, man, because Ottawa, Columbus, Montreal, Boston, Rangers, Detroit, two of those teams, any two of those teams could absolutely make it into the playoffs. And then you have Pittsburgh, who they are just never mediocre. They're either awful or they're awesome, and they just can't find that mediocre. I think the Islanders and the Sabres are done. And what I will say before I hand it off to you to have your thoughts, if I'm Buffalo, and I don't know who I am in this scenario, if I'm the management or if I'm the players or if I'm a fan with a gun in my hand pointed at my temple, I like this was the year for Buffalo. Like, you look at this hodgepodge that is the Eastern Conference, and you're looking at the Columbus Blue Jackets sitting in a playoff spot right now. Like, and the Rangers are out of a playoff spot. Boston's out of a playoff spot. Like, if I'm the Buffalo Sabres, I'm just kicking myself in the teeth, man. Like, how do you let this slip away? That's a different part of the conversation. But I just had to have one last parting shot at the Buffalo Sabres on my way out of here. But what do you like? I know we talk about this like almost every day, dude, but like, I don't know. We haven't been on for a week, so I felt like I had, the place to do it. I just can't get enough of this Eastern Conference race, bro. It's fascinating to me. And like I said to you pre-show, I just feel like last year all these teams sucked because all the teams that didn't want to make it to the playoffs, like your Pittsburghs, your Islanders, your Washingtons, your Detroit, all of them had at some level, maybe less for Washington, but all of them at some level had some sort of playoff aspirations. We had high expectations where, especially Columbus and Montreal, we did not expect this at all. So it just makes it more like fun to have two teams that haven't been in this conversation for many off seasons now. Ottawa, you give props where props is due. They're here. They should have been here for the last 2 to 3 years now, but they're here now. What do you take about all this, man? Like, it's crazy, super fascinating. And I will say, just real quick, Tampa Bay Lightning, 53 points, third place in the third place in the Atlantic Division. Toronto, 60 points, number 1. Florida, 57 points, number 2. Tampa, 53 points. Ottawa and Montreal, both in that division, 52 and 50 points. Boston as well, 50 points. Like, we're not just talking about the wild card right now. Like, Tampa's kind of, at least mathematically, part of this conversation too. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, Tampa's a weird case. One, because they've been streaky all season. So you look at those, they have 3 games in hand on the top.
Yep, that's true.
They have 2 games in hand on the wild card teams. They win out, they're a point back at the Leafs. They lose out, and suddenly they're staring down a wild card spot. So Tampa's very interesting, especially they have the second best goal differential in the Eastern Conference. There's a lot of ways where Tampa's a very good team. There's a lot of ways where Tampa's been a very unreliable, shaky, suspect, whatever you want to call them, team. So it depends on which version of Tampa we get, week to week, month to month. I feel comfortable with Tampa in one of those top 3 spots. I said that before.
Yeah, me too.
But I see what you're saying. If they have another one of those rough patches that they've had a few of this year, Ottawa's right there. Ottawa could very easily pass them. And that's kudos to Ottawa. I think Ottawa, of all the teams we just mentioned, I'm between Ottawa and Montreal being an absolute certainty. I'd probably say those two definitely, or not definitely, but can be wild cards. I'm not sure if I'm buying Columbus long term, just because they allow so many goals and they're just so bad on the road. You know they're not going to pick up points on the road, is what it feels like. And great home record, but how long is that going to last? 16-5-3. I don't know if I don't know if I buy that being sustainable with their defensive issues. So you allow that many pucks, it puts a lot of pressure on your offense to be perfect. A lot of pressure on your puck movement. I don't think it's sustainable for long-term success. And generally speaking, it isn't. Good for them for getting this far and being this strong. I really like that they're playing well. Columbus is a likable team. Just not sure if I buy it. And it's weird because Montreal has allowed the same amount of goals in the same amount of games. But I feel like Montreal has been lately just a completely different team. And not just, I say lately, but it's been over a month.
Oh, yeah.
They've just been a completely different, like genuinely don't want to play them good, finding ways to win team. So I feel like Montreal has shown us this is who we are. I feel like Columbus has shown us this is who we are as well. But who they are is we're going to have to beat you 6-5 every single time. And we have to hope that it's at home because when we travel, you're getting the best of us. So I'm going to knock the Jackets out. Bruins, I've asked them already. I never had faith in that team. The Red Wings, I kind of have faith in, but they're, again, they've been kind of inconsistent. If they regroup, stack a couple wins in a row, they're going to be right there.
Yep.
So I do like Detroit more than, let's say, a Philly, more than a Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has the worst goal differential in the East, by the way. Boston has the second worst. So when you look at those teams in particular, older, kind of weird transitional period, not playing well, not really buying them. I'm with you where I'm axing the Sabres and the Orange team entirely because I mean, the Islanders, I will say, if the Islanders get hot, they are also in it. Do we expect that, though? We haven't seen this team win consistently, like consecutively, really all season. They just alternate wins, losses. More so, if they're going to have a streak, it's more likely to be lose 2 or 3 in a row than win 2 or 3.
Well, and the one thing too, Andre, sorry to cut you off, just to throw this in here real quickly, is a team like Montreal, and we briefly touched on it when you were having your computer issues, but a team like Montreal, like you said, like 12-8-3 at home, 11-11-1 on the road. That's good enough to get in. Like if you can just toe that 500 line on the road and be above 500 at home, you're probably in this, this is my second time using the phrase hodgepodge of the Eastern Conference. That's probably good enough to get in. The Islanders, a late 8-11-2 at home, 10-9-5 on the road. Like, you're technically 500 on the road, technically. But if you can't get above 500 at home and you're barely 500 on the road, that's just not going to get it done.
Yeah. Is there any? I don't think we expect to talk about the Islanders much today, but is there any reason for you? Do you see any reason why or how the Islanders turn this around?
No, I mean, if I have to make a case, I would say that Sorokin, when he's on, he still has that potential and that pedigree of being one of the best goaltenders in the league. Is he top 5? Probably not. Top 10? Probably. Like when Sorokin's playing his best, he's probably top 10 in the league. But that's probably the case I would make. Like, I haven't, without even looking at it, like I would have to double check this here. So I will before I say something stupid. Yeah, their special teams are off. Like literally the worst in both categories. So I should have just trusted my gut with that one. Like 67.4% penalty kill, Andre. I don't know. In my couple years of covering this league, I don't know if I've ever seen that. Is that the worst penalty kill percentage? I'm not going to say of all time, but like of the last like decade.
Well, now I'm looking it up.
7.4%. That's awful.
Now I'm looking it up.
It has to be up there.
My God.
The Rangers.
No, this
Okay.
is on track to be the worst penalty killing season in NHL history.
Dude.
It looks like. And the Red Wings, 0.8% behind them, are right there, second. And then
Are they that bad too? Oh my
the
goodness.
record right now is the Kings, 68.2% in the 79-80 season. That team did not make the playoffs. Let's see if any of these teams even had a winning record. No. The Minnesota Wild. Oh, that's this year.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad PKs this year. The Islanders last year made the playoffs. 71.5% PK. Looks like it's 14th worst all time.
Yeah, but last year, I just feel like this is just different. Like last year, all those teams that were fighting to get in were genuinely bad. Like all of them. And we saw that with Washington as well. Like they were a bad team, found a way to get in. Great story. Where this year, I think Ottawa, Montreal, Columbus, I think those teams are good. Like I think they're good teams. Like obviously they're not great. Like we know what they are, but like I don't think Columbus. It wouldn't shock me if Columbus didn't make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff. Like I think what they are right now is what they are, and that might not be good enough to get them into the playoffs. But you know what I mean? So the Islanders, back to your question, like if I think Sorokin's a really good goaltender. Like, you know, and so that's like my one thing. They can't score goals, less than 3 goals scored per game. And so if Sorokin can tidy it up a little bit, then that would be my one thing that I could see them making a push here. I still can't get over Buffalo. Like, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but this just feels like this was the year. This was the year to get it done, right?
Yeah. Fortunately for the Sabres, a lot of their fans are distracted right now. But that's
Well, we said this back in December. Like, thank the Lord for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Sabres, like our Buffalo Bills. Because if it wasn't for them, by the way, Andre, you and I talked football before the show. I just want to I just want to apologize because I am moving right now. My Eagles jersey is packed somewhere and I don't know where it is. So I was going to wear my Eagles jersey for you today. But I can't find it. It's somewhere packed in storage. So I'm sorry.
I don't know why. I just feel like forgiving you today.
I appreciate that.
Let it slide. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, the Sabres. This year was a wasted opportunity. I do want to say, Alfred, shout out, man. Happy MLK Day. Appreciate you for tuning in. But looking at these teams, I think we probably have to wrap it up soon. But
yeah,
Ottawa, I'll give a chance. Montreal, I'll give a chance. The Rangers, I know I said they're cooked. Might have been a little emotional. Actually, no, it wasn't emotional. Their defense has turned it around a ton lately.
Yeah, they have.
Which is a major reason they're starting to pick up points very consistently. What's the point streak at now? 8, 9? I don't know. I should probably know that. But the Rangers, I'm giving a chance.
They're 6-1-3 in their last 10, so it's around there.
Yeah, it's been. I know they lost. They blew the game in Colorado. That was an OT loss. They blew the game yesterday. OT loss. The Stars game was also an OT loss, right? So that's
yes, it was.
That's 8 in a row, 5 wins, 3 OT losses.
Yeah, it was overtime. Yeah,
consistently picking up points. Their defense looks completely different. For some reason, whenever Matt Rumpy's in the lineup, they seem to pick up points, even though he plays like 5 minutes a game. I'm not going to say I could do his job, but you know what I mean. So the Rangers, I give a chance. The Red Wings, I'll give a chance. I talked about them earlier.
Yep.
The Flyers, I'm on the fence about. The Flyers, I'm not sure what to do with, but I'm axing the Bruins. I'm axing the Penguins, and I like them. I really do, but I'm axing the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can't get there with the Blue Jackets yet. I've just been so impressed with how this, and I think you're being a responsible, objective journalist, where I am basing it on pure emotion, and I just want the story. Like, I just want the story. Like, I just want Columbus to make it so bad. Like, I just want them. Excuse me. Sorry. I love that story so much that I'm just gonna will away. I'm just gonna will for them to get into the playoffs. I think my axe is a little smaller than yours. You're axing like I don't know. I just Pittsburgh. The real thing about it is that, like, last year, all of these teams were losing all at the same time, right? Yeah. Where this year, you know, I don't think Ottawa, Montreal, Rangers, Detroit, specifically Ottawa, Montreal, and the Rangers, like those three teams, I really do think are going to be in the mix for the long haul, which means that Pittsburgh, Philly, all these other teams really have to make the push. They have to continue winning. The thing about the Philadelphia Flyers, which I kind of briefly mentioned earlier, is I don't think from an organization standpoint, I don't think it's as important as, say, Boston, New York, Pittsburgh. Like, those teams need to make it to the playoffs. Boston and New York were expected to make it to the playoffs. Pittsburgh wanted to make it to the playoffs. Philly, I just think they're still in their process, and they outperformed their expectations last year. And I think they're right there. So if last year for Philadelphia, if last year was the year that it was expected to be, like, not that great, then this year would be a step forward, right? But because of the year they had last year, this just kind of plateaued a little bit. So I think Philly is still where they want to be. I'm not concerned about them long term. Are they going to make it to the playoffs? Probably not. I don't know. But does that make sense? Like, I just think that, like, last year they were way better than they were supposed to be. So if you're going off of that, then they are where they're supposed to be right now, and I'm not really too worried about it.
Yeah, Philly. Yeah, we've gone back and forth. I feel like on expectations for Philly a lot since last year. I feel like you pull up us in the past 12 months. It's like, okay, they're rebuilding. There's no need, to make the playoffs right now.
Right.
They don't need to win per se, but it's nice. And then it was like, okay, they need to take the next step forward. But then it's like they lost the goalie, a franchise goalie, out of nowhere, and
yeah,
they're not going to recover, and that's okay. And I was like, well, they're not winning enough. They should make they're in a weird spot.
Yeah. Listen, man, that Carter Hart thing, like, obviously it's not the most important part of that situation. Obviously, that doesn't need to be said. But that can't be overstated. Like, he was their future. And so, like, now, and like, shout out to Sammy Boy, Mr. Ayrson. He worked way too much last year, and he's going to be a good goaltender. I actually really like him, but he's not that guy, right? And so, yeah, that's tough. So before we move on to the rest of the games, I will say Boston did score. Let me just double check who this was. Where is it? Whatever. They scored. Minus 460 on the money line live. San Jose is plus 320. Plus 1.5 for the Sharks is now plus 122. I love that. Minus 1.5 for Boston is minus 154. The over 5.5 is minus 130, and the under is plus 100. Before we move on to the rest of the games this afternoon into this evening, the Western Conference, I don't think there's as much drama as there is in the East, and that is because the West, the top half of the West is just better. And where there's definitely two spots in the East up for grabs. If you include Tampa Bay, I agree with you. I think Tampa Bay is a lock. However, if you're just looking at the math, and I know that they have the 3 games in hand, but if you're looking at the math, they are mathematically with the rest of these teams, Ottawa, Columbus, Montreal, mathematically, and I'm with you. I do think they're a lock to make it. But again, mathematically, they're with Ottawa, Columbus, Montreal, Boston, Rangers. So technically 3 spots up for grabs. In the West, there's 1. In the West, there's 1. And I feel like it's safe to say that there is only going to be 1. Winnipeg, Dallas, Minnesota, 1, 2, 3 in the Central. Vegas, Edmonton, Kings, 1, 2, 3 in the Pacific. Colorado, 57 points, number 1 wild card spot. Colorado, Minnesota, and Dallas. Like Dallas is 2. 2 in the Central at 59 points. Minnesota's 58. And Colorado's 57. Those 3 teams are going to dance between the 2, 3rd, and the wild card spot. They're going to do this dance, I think, for the rest of the year. Feels like Winnipeg has the number 1 spot. Not locked up, but it feels pretty safe to say that they're going to stay in that number 1 spot. Listen, Calgary, 51 points. They're the 2nd wild card. Vancouver, 50. St. Louis, 48. It just feels like the West is much more settled. Like, it's expected that the Eastern Conference, those 2 teams, Ottawa and Columbus, in those 2 wildcard spots, it feels like whether it's one or both, it feels like that's not going to be the way that this settles. Where in the West, with this free fall that Vancouver's on, it feels like we're looking at the playoffs right now for the West, at least for me. That being said, Vancouver, who JT Miller's going to the Rangers like 1 minute and then it's not going the other minute, and Pettersson and Demko can't buy a save. Like, just so much drama going on in Vancouver, but they're 50 points, 1 point back of the Calgary Flames and 5 points back of the Kings. 3rd in the Pacific. The Kings do have 2 games in hand, and with the Wildfires, like, games have been postponed. I know that Calgary game is postponed until April. I haven't seen anything about the other game that was postponed. I think there was one more postponed, wasn't there?
I think so. I didn't look at the full updated schedule. I just to be completely transparent here.
Yeah. I can't remember either. But I'm just saying, like, while it feels like Vancouver is falling out, which they have fallen out, but it feels like they're a disaster. They're still only 1 point back of the Flames, and they're only 5 points back for 3rd place in the Central. Now you look at that the other way, the Flames are only 4 points back of 3rd place in the Central. So do you have any thoughts on the West, kind of what we're seeing here? It's fun to see the Vegas Edmonton dance. It's fun to see the Dallas, Minnesota, Colorado dance. But as far as making it into the playoffs, those 5 teams are in the playoffs. There's no drama there aside from just like divisional rankings, right?
No, yeah. 4 teams from Central we know are going to make it. I feel, again, pretty confident saying at least Vegas and Edmonton are solidified in the Pacific. I still feel comfortable and confident in the Kings. Haven't 6-4 in their last 10, not exactly lighting it up. They're not falling apart though. I think they're fine. Really, the West is down to one spot: Calgary, Vancouver. We've kind of seen this brewing for a while now, ever since the Canucks not fell off a cliff, but lost their footing, had some infighting. Apparently, JT Miller and Elias Pettersson can't stand each other. Blood feud, cursing family names and all that, whatever. I think Vancouver ultimately has the talent, and they're going to right the ship and regain what they lost. But I wouldn't count out Calgary. There's a reason they're there. So West is not even close to as interesting, for better or worse. That might not be the worst thing in the world for us or for some of these teams.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to look at it, like, yes, St. Louis is right there, 3 points back. Utah, 6 points back. But I don't know. Like, St. Louis is the one team that I find curious. I know that you wrote them off back in August. I still feel like since Jim Montgomery's taking over, they're a different team, and I think that they do have what it takes to get it done. I would agree with you that based on talent, Vancouver is the team. Like, that's the team that you would expect to take that kind of leap and go into the playoffs. However, watching the games, like, forget the roster, forget the stat sheet, forget all of that. Watching the games, Calgary is just a hungrier team every night. Like, there's nights where Vancouver just looks absolutely not interested in what's happening. Like, that 5-1 loss to the Kings, like, last week, that was just, like, one of the most embarrassing performances that you can remember. Like, and you never... Listen, I'm not a professional athlete, all right? I played hockey on Saturday morning, and with 10 minutes left in the game, I could barely feel my legs. So I'm not a professional athlete by any means. You never want to say that anyone has quit. That's like a major slap in the face to athletes in any league to say they quit. But whatever that was against the Kings, now they bounced back. They beat the Canucks, or they beat the Oilers. But whatever that was in the King, like against the Kings, that still left a really bad taste in my mouth. And Quinn Hughes is good for whatever prop you want to take every single night. That guy, he shows up every night. Excuse me. But the rest of that Oilers team or Canucks team, I'm not really sure what we're seeing there. Now, speaking of that game, one last thing to get to. We got 8 other games to get to. And so we should really start to do that soon. But one last quick thing, and I want to get your take on it because I have some thoughts about this. Connor McDavid has a hearing today with the NHLPA, or the NH, not PA, whatever, the NHL. Tyler Myers for Vancouver does as well. Connor McDavid probably going to get suspended for his hit to the head, like slash to the head of Garland, and Tyler Myers for his extracurricular nonsense in the same game. I have my thoughts on it. I want to give you the floor first, though, Andre. Suspension, McDavid, yes, no. What do you feel about this whole situation?
It's just it felt like, policing yourself, like the ref wasn't doing anything. You're frustrated, you're being held down, no call. There's just, I think it was a mix of frustrations boiling over, and just end of the game, no whistle, mixing together. I don't think you should be allowed, I don't care who you are, to but you shouldn't be allowed to get away with using your stick on anyone's face, head, neck area, whatever. That's very dangerous. I firmly believe that. At the same time, if you're not going to let the guy play hockey, like in the biggest moment, that's what's going to happen. And his teammates are trying to win a game. So I understand none of them coming over and breaking it up, like with seconds left. That ensures, you get a face off, you lose because time just ticks away, basically. But what's the guy supposed to do? It's just, to me, he's getting suspended because the refs didn't call anything. He's getting suspended because a guy went out of his way to not play hockey and take the best player in the world out of the game. Does it? Vancouver got the points. They won. So it worked, right? Overtime. I can see why you would do that. I feel like if it was the Rangers and I'd be like, yeah, that's Bush League, but you got to do what you got to do to win and get those 2 points. I kind of see it both ways. I think, again, using the stick as a weapon, face, neck, head area, it's a little too far for me. Maybe like a 1-game suspension, even if it's the best player in the world. I think it definitely sends a message that it's McDavid. But what's the guy supposed to do? I don't know. Besides just straight up punching him in the face, I think I would have supported that more. But I don't think McDavid wants to risk breaking his hand hitting somebody at this point. So I don't know.
Okay, so this is a thing. All right, where do I have so many thoughts on this, like where to start with it. So, number one, the play itself, I might be crazy for this. I didn't think he necessarily meant to get him right in the head. Like when he spun around, like I thought he let me make this clear. He wanted to hit him with his stick. That is a fact. I don't think he was necessarily aiming for his head. I just feel like he was spinning around and swinging. Like, I don't think it was like, I'm going to nail this guy right in the head, Todd Bertuzzi style. Like, I don't think it was like that. Although that's an extreme example because that was insane. But so that's number one. Number two, what you said is spot on. You're not getting a call. What are the refs doing here? I got to take things into my own hands. We used to see this all the time. Like, this is not new to the NHL. This has been happening for decades. So I understand why he did it, and I support him doing it. Again, hitting somebody in the head, no, not good. I don't think he meant to. I think sometimes in the NHL, the sport of hockey, you have to take things into your own hands sometimes. I completely buy into that. The other side of this, and I think that this is the thing, is like, this isn't a couple minutes at the end of a hockey game and emotions boiled over. This is long time coming. Like, long time coming. Connor McDavid does not get calls all the time. Like, a lot. Like, this happens a lot. And I just think he finally had enough. Snapped. Like, and listen, I'm not necessarily supporting favorable treatment to one player over the other, but the NHL, more than any other sport, loves parity, right? We see it with the salary cap and what that's turned into. This hodgepodge, again, in the Eastern Conference that we just talked about, that is directly because of the NHL loving parity and the salary cap and the whole deal. That same mindset comes into play with star players not getting calls. In every other sport, specifically football and basketball, baseball is a little harder to do. But specifically in basketball and football, we see this all the time for years, right? Like, Steph Curry has gotten calls that other players wouldn't have gotten. LeBron James, like, all the time. We see this with You don't even have to be a football fan to turn on Twitter and see the Patrick Mahomes, like AI videos of him making out with the refs. Like that's that, you know what I mean? Like we see this all the time. And in hockey, it has swung so far the other way that for decades, star players have not gotten calls. This goes back to the 70s, 80s. This goes back like a long, long time. And I'm not necessarily saying that I want it to be as egregious as the NBA. I'm just saying that, like, if the NHL wants to grow the game and continue to grow the game, this has to become a star-driven league, and your star players need to be shown more respect by the referees. And I'm not saying they need every single little thing like ticky-tacky needs to be called. I'm not saying that. But for what happened Saturday night to not be called is outrageous. And this is something that we've seen for decades in the NHL. Like, this is not a one-off. And it's happened for a lot of years with Connor McDavid. And before Connor McDavid, it was Sidney Crosby. And before Sidney Crosby, it was Mark Messier. And before Mark Messier, you know what I mean? Like, this has been happening forever. And it's ridiculous. Like, I hate it. Should Connor McDavid get suspended? For sure. Like, you gotta suspend him, whether for the opposite side of this argument, right? Like, you can't not suspend Connor McDavid because he's Connor McDavid. Like, you still gotta suspend him. 1 game, 2 games, I don't know. Who knows? The NHL suspension is like the most unpredictable. Like, if you could bet on suspension lengths, the books would be way richer than they already are, because nobody has any idea ever. So you gotta suspend them. I think 1 game's probably enough in my opinion, but who knows? But those are my thoughts on it, man. I just think that this has been a problem for a really long time in this league, and this is what it leads to. This is what happens. Like, I don't know.
No, you're 100% right. I think in a way, like, there not matters, but like, it's admirable that the NHL does not treat its stars differently.
It is, yeah.
They play the same. They're human. Like, I respect that part of it. At the same time, they deserve the same calls. They're playing the same sport. Like, they should be treated the same. So it's ridiculous when you want to see if Connor McDavid can, help tie up the game with an empty net, and instead he's just being suffocated on the ice for 30 seconds. So I don't know. NHL has been pretty bad at marketing stars, and I'm not saying they should start getting favorable calls, but maybe, just maybe, letting them play hockey knowing they'll get calls if they actually, get penalized, fouled, whatever, will help bring some eyeballs to the game.
Well, yeah, and I mean, if a penalty was called there, that it wouldn't have been favorable. Like, that's a penalty. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a penalty, Small little tidbit, the Tyler Myers thing, that was uncalled for and unnecessary and unexplained. Like, you can't explain that one away. That's on him. He deserves to get suspended. That's a completely different scenario than what we're talking about with Connor McDavid. All right, wrapping it up. We'll find out soon what the verdict is. All right, moving on. We do have 8 more games to get to, so let's get to it. First period is over in Boston. San Jose, Boston tied 1-1. Plus 158 are the Sharks. Minus 205 are the Bruins. Minus 1.5 is plus 144 for Boston. Plus 1.5 is minus 190 for San Jose. Over 6.5 plus 100. Under is minus 130. Moving on. Minnesota in Colorado. Minnesota reeling a little bit lately. Plus 188 on the road in Colorado. Minus 230 are the Avalanche at home. Minus 1.5 for the Avalanche is plus 114. Plus 1.5 for the Wild is minus 140. over 5.5 is -128, and the under is +104. Andre, what do you got, man? Minnesota, Colorado. Minnesota, not as trustworthy a bet as they have been for the majority of the season.
No, they've lost 4 or 5. They gave up 4+ goals in all 4 losses. They haven't scored more than 3 goals in those games, win or lose. The only win was against the Sharks, so not even impressive. No offense, actually offense to the Sharks. But they did really what they were supposed to do. I think the Nashville loss probably the worst of it, 6-2 against that team, because we know Nashville doesn't score like that. And that really brings us to Colorado, who alternating wins and losses lately. You know, the offense, for the most part, pretty consistent, 3 goals or more. There's duds in between, but those are the losses. They've owned the Wild, though, lately, starting with at the start of the 2022-23 season. They won a couple games against them. They went 2-1 against them that year, and then they've won 5 in a row since then, starting with the beginning of last season. Obviously, the sweep last year, including 5-2 wins in April to end the season series. This year, they met for the first time January 9th. Colorado went to Minnesota. They won 6-1. And we know that this Avs team, for the most part, tends to be much more scary at home. So you look at what Minnesota's not doing, or especially offensively, you look at how many goals they're allowing lately. It looks like 22 in the last 5 games versus only 10 goals scored. That's not going to cut it. I really like what the Avs are doing here. I really like how they've played Minnesota the past few years. I really like that Colorado -1.5 in a high-scoring game.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I'm having a hard time retraining my brain to not leap on Minnesota at such heavy plus money. Like I don't know. I don't think that these odds are correct in the sense that, like, I don't know, like, Minnesota's still a good team. They've had a good season. They've been regressing as of late. They've had injuries on and off, and their goaltending's been a little bit shakier than it had been for the first, 2/3 of the season so far. Plus 188 seems rich. Like, I feel like if Colorado was in the -140s, 150s, maybe 160s, I could get down with that. But -230 does seem a little bit aggressive. And I think -1.5 at plus 114, like, that just speaks, like, a lot of times when Vegas is trying to talk to us, I just try to ignore it and just bet on what I want to bet on. But this it really, it just seems so outrageous to me that I can't ignore it. And I'm with you on the -1 and -1.5 here. Plus 114. I do think Nathan McKinnon, 2+ points is -115. And I'm all over that. 2+ points at minus money, that's hard to ignore. So I'm all over that as well. Moving on to Buffalo in Seattle. 2 teams that we hate talking about. The Buffalo Sabres plus 105 on the road. Seattle -126. Also, real quick, just to add, congratulations to the NHL. Again, I chirp you on your scheduling. I got to give it up for this. 1 o'clock, then a 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Those games overlap a little bit. By the time St. Louis, Vegas starts, Minnesota, Colorado is wrapped up. Seattle, Buffalo heading into the 3rd period. Toronto, Tampa Bay, 7:40. Columbus Islanders also 7:40. Carolina, Chicago, 8:40. Winnipeg, Utah, 9:40. Pittsburgh Kings, 10:40. That's a good stagger. That's a good stagger. And there will not be another minute for the rest of the day without NHL hockey. So Absolutely love it. All right. Buffalo, Seattle, plus 105 are the Sabres, minus 126 are the Kraken at home. Minus 1.5 for Seattle is plus 198. Plus 1.5 is minus 250. Over 5.5 is minus 120. Under 5.5 is minus 102. I'll just go first here. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is out. Devin Levi has been called up. I have no idea. That makes me want to take the over. No disrespect to Levi. But then again, both these teams aren't trustworthy in any department. Scoring, not scoring, I have no idea. This, to me, I want to take the over. I feel like 5.5 minus 120 with a goaltender that just got called up. I don't know. This makes me, at least I think he's starting. I could be wrong here. The goalies aren't even listed on FanDuel yet. This is a stay away for me, Andre. I have no idea. What do you do here? I have no idea. Like, the one thing I will say, Schwartz been on a tear. I believe, I could get this wrong, but I believe nobody has more goals than him in the month of January or in the last 30 days. I think Jaden Schwartz has the most goals in the last 30 days. I'm fairly certain. So that's cool. Plus 210 for him to score. But other than that, man, I got nothing. What do you got here?
Yeah, oddly enough, the Sabres, 2 of the last 3 games outshot their opponent and lost. 3 of the other 3 of that 5-game stretch, they got outshot and won. Really weird team. I don't like talking about the Sabres. I don't like betting on the Sabres. I will say lost at home to this Kraken team 6-2. That is probably the biggest factor in this decision. The Kraken keep getting outshot, but against the Sabres, that's probably a good thing. I'm going to take the Kraken minus 120.
Gotcha. Yeah, not bad odds and not a bad pick. You could pick any one of these 2 teams, and I wouldn't disagree with you. I just can't get there for any of them. St. Louis in Vegas. First thought, this seems like Vegas all day. Vegas hasn't been playing great, though. They recently lost to the Blackhawks. St. Louis is just middle of the pack. 5-5, I believe, in the last 10, if I remember that correctly. Just kind of hovering around. St. Louis plus 155 on the road. They're now plus 158. Vegas was minus 188. They're now minus 192. Minus 1.5 for Vegas is plus 134. Plus 1.5 for the Blues, minus 164. Over 5.5 is minus 130. And the under is plus 106. What do you got here, Vegas Blues? Another one that I think I'm leaning Vegas minus 1.5, but this is another one that I don't know.
This is another, last game was your stay away. I think this is going to be mine. Maybe that Blues plus 1.5, but I'm seeing minus 150, or at least in that range, depending on your book. Not the best odds. You could throw it in a parlay, but I don't trust Vegas at all right now. I don't think there's any reason to trust Vegas right now. And then you look at the Blues. You said it best, 5-5 in their last 10. They're just consistently consistent. And that consistency, it's 500. 500 hockey. You're going to win, you're going to lose. I don't really know if I like either offense right now. So I might take a gamble on that under 5.5 while it's still plus money. But this one's rough, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think I lean under as well. This is another stay away. So not the most insightful 2 games on a betting show, but I just don't really trust it. You can get me on board with some Jack Eichel props. He's been dynamite all year long. Buffalo, their guys are just all very up and down right now, and it's just hard to really trust any of it. Moving on, Tampa Bay in Toronto. And I got to tell you about this. because we haven't been on a show. We weren't on at all last week. And so I haven't talked to you since not last Friday, but the previous Friday. The Dallas Stars were in Toronto on Tuesday night, and I was a guest on a Toronto Maple Leafs post-game podcast on Tuesday night after Dallas played Toronto. If you follow the show, you know I cover the Dallas Stars for the HockeyWriters.com, and a guy that I know has a Toronto Maple Leaf podcast. I'll just shout it out. I don't know why I'm being so coy about this. Split the Defense. You can find them on YouTube. I believe they're on Spotify and Apple, and you can find them on Twitter and all that stuff. Split the Defense. Maple Leaf centered post-game podcast. They had me on, and it's just so fascinating now that I don't cover the Leafs, and now that I cover the Dallas Stars and I cover the rest of the league, and I'm not just all Toronto focused. It's incredible the negative energy surrounding this team when they stub their toe. It's incredible. And those guys do a great job. They have an awesome podcast. I love those dudes. They're really good at what they do. And I encourage you when the game is over tonight to go check out Split the Defense. I'm just saying, like, so there's another side of this is there's a Dallas Stars podcast that I listened to. And before that game against Toronto, they predicted a Dallas-Toronto Stanley Cup final. And when I told the guys on the Split the Defense podcast, their heads exploded. Like, Stanley Cup finals, what? Because us in Toronto, we just can't have nice things. But listen, man, Toronto, their last 2 wins, they were on a 3-game losing streak. Tough. The last 2 wins, they were losing to the Devils going into the third period. They crawled back. They got the win. Against Montreal, same thing. Not only were they losing 3-0 in that game against Montreal on Saturday, they won the game 7-3. This Toronto team, I get why the odds are the way they are. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that Tampa Bay and Minnesota are comparable, but if Colorado's minus 230 favorites against Minnesota, I know Tampa Bay is a good team. They've been up and down lately. Minus 128 for Toronto, in my opinion, is a steal. And maybe I'm just being overly homer at this point, but I just think best team in the division, minus 128, Toronto Maple Leafs. It's actually now minus 134. So going in that direction of what I'm talking about. Tampa Bay plus 112 on the road, plus 1.5 for the Lightning is minus 220. Minus 1.5 for the Maple Leafs is plus 176. Over 6.5 is minus 110, and the under is the same, minus 110. I love Toronto here, man. I just think that they're playing. They have that little 3-game slide. If you are from Toronto, if you know Toronto, you know that when the Maple Leafs go on a 3-game slide, they act like they're the only team in the NHL that has ever lost 3 games in a row, and the sky is falling. They're first place. Can I just speak to Toronto Maple Leaf fans for a second? We're first place. I know this is uncomfortable for you. I know you don't know how this feels. I know. Trust me, I know. We haven't been first place in a division since I was like in grade 9. I'm 35. Grade 9 was a long time ago. But you know what? We're first place. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the run. Enjoy Amazon hockey. Some people don't like Sportsnet. Some people don't like TSN. Tonight, you're on Amazon. Just enjoy. Toronto, Tampa Bay, minus 128 Toronto. That's all I got to say. Andre, what do you feel about this game?
That was
Thank
beautiful. That's the first thing I want to feel. But these teams, last 3 meetings, including both this season, 4 of the past 5, have finished over the total. If you go past 6 games, there was a 4-3 game that was a push because the total was set at 7 goals. That should tell you all you need to know. High scoring affairs usually. You look at the Lightning last game, 5-1 final. It was a push. They won. 3 games before that all went over the total. scored 4 goals against the Ducks, scored 5 goals against the Penguins, allowed 6 goals against the Bruins. That's really ugly. You look at the Leafs coming off a 7-3 win. They won 4-3 the game before that. They allowed at least 3 goals in the 3 games before that. All losses. They're back in the win column. They shook it off. I like the over in this game. I like it a lot. These teams, when they match up, it just tends to be high scoring. I do think the Leafs are a better team, but they've won twice already against this Lightning team. Getting 3, kind of tough. I like the over more. I might gamble if I was picking this side. I might gamble on Lightning plus 110 just because I feel like they're due to beat this team. But I could be wrong. Sweeps happen. They happen all the time. Look at the Red Wings and the Sharks. So just give me the over.
Yeah, the Sharks and the Blues last year too, right? Even the Sharks sweep teams. Yeah, I'm right there with you with the over 100%. I think that's excellent breaking down analysis. I didn't have time for analysis. I just needed to share my heart because people in Toronto, and I'm one of them, dude. Like I'm one of them, but like full disclosure, man, like I like we cover the whole league on this show. I also cover the Dallas Stars, and I'm taking on another team that I'll share about another time. I'm covering a second team for the Hockey Writers starting soon. So I don't have as much time to dive into Toronto media as I once did. And when you get away from the Toronto media fog, and listen, I love Toronto media. I love the radio shows up here. I love the newspapers, Toronto Sun, Toronto Star, both great coverage. I'm all about it. I'm just saying, when you take a step back and look at the rest of the league and then look again at Toronto, be grateful for what you have because we have it really good up here. It just sucks in April, so you're not able to fully appreciate what's going on up here. But I just need to get that off my chest. The Columbus Blue Jackets. This might be a fast forward to our best bet segment because I cannot understand for the life of me what I am looking at. The Columbus Blue Jackets plus 152 on the island. Islanders minus 184. Minus 1.5 for the Islanders is plus 140. Plus 1.5 for the Blue Jackets is minus 172. Over 5.5 is minus 120. Under is minus 102. I am extremely quick to take the Blue Jackets money line here without even a thought about it. So I need Andre. Are you going to talk me off the ledge? Are you going to talk some reason into me? Am I being too trigger happy? I probably shouldn't do that gun motion nowadays. But anyway, am I being too trigger happy with a Columbus plus 152? Talk to me here. Like, be my betting therapist for a moment.
I spent a solid 5 minutes, I'd say like 45 minutes ago. I spent a solid 5 minutes talking about how unreliable and bad this Blue Jackets team was on the road. So, yeah, I'm going to have to talk you off the ledge. Listen, I understand they are the better team. There is not a chance in hell, HE double hockey sticks, that I am taking the Islanders minus 1.5. Let's make that very clear. But I don't trust the Blue Jackets on the road here. So I'm not picking this side. I know these teams met in October. That was a long time ago. The Jackets won 2-0. A lot has changed since then. But I just saw the Jackets in the Garden. They had 65 minutes and 2 power plays, 27 shots, 0 goals. They get to a shootout through the grace of God, 0 goals. They didn't hit the back of the net for that entire game. Not in the shootout, not in overtime, not in regulation, whatever. It was rough. It was bad. Now they're facing, now they're on the road again. They had probably their best. They had their best defensive and goaltending performance of the season in the away game. Came away with 1 point. That's not going to hold. They allow the second most goals per game on the road this season, 3.64. The Islanders aren't good by any stretch, but they're good enough to take advantage of bad teams. They just beat the Sharks. They beat Utah recently, They alternate wins and losses. They stagger. I think this is going to be a 1-goal game. I think the Islanders are going to come out on top. I like the over more than anything, though, because if the Jackets are going to make this one a fight, they're going to have to score at least 3 because they're going to give up at least 3.
Yeah, you know what, man? Like a lot of times when people work together, they're coworkers. You know what I mean? They're not friends, they're not enemies, they're just coworkers. They're just whatever. You and me on the other hand, we talk every day. We're bros at this point. We're friends, we're family, and I appreciate you so much. I do have to get you in on a little group chat with my wife and my mom and my brother, my cousin Justin, one of my closest friends, my cousin, great guy. I need to get you on a little group chat with all of them, and they will tell you that you can try to talk me off the ledge all you want, and I'm just going to do whatever I want to do anyway. So I hear you. And that one stat about the road is very, very like, my mind's blanking on a word, but that's a very good point. I'll just put it that way. They suck on the road. That's an absolute great point by you. I just can't get over how bad this Islanders team just drives me crazy. Like, I just can't get past the Islanders like part of it all. And Columbus, as we said, on the road, 6-12-4. Islanders at home, where is it? They're 8-11-2. It's not like the Islanders like light it up at home either, right? So I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with the points you're making, but I'm still rolling Columbus plus 152 on here. Columbus also, like in fantasy hockey and in like prop betting and stuff, Columbus has been one of these teams. Like, this isn't rocket science. Like, typically the best players in fantasy are on good teams. That's just kind of like normal. Columbus has a bunch of really good fantasy options right now, and in the prop market as well. Anders Lee, Bo Horvat, Matthew Barzal, Brock Nelson. You have to go through those 4 players before you get to a goal-scoring prop for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Kirill Marchenko plus 240, and I do think a lot of that speaks to what you were talking about. Kirill Marchenko plus 240. Zach Werenski plus 440. I love that as like a long shot bet. I think that's absolutely beautiful. So that's where I'm at when it comes to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Moving on. 3 more games to get to. Thank you so much to everybody. Most of you watching have been with us since the beginning. We really appreciate that very, very much, taking time on your MLK Monday. Moving on to the Carolina Hurricanes in Chicago. Carolina minus 320 in Chicago, plus 255 are the Blackhawks. Minus 1.5 for Carolina is minus 124. Plus 1.5 for the Blackhawks, is plus 102. Over 5.5 is minus 134, and under is plus 110. Another one, Andre, that feels like Carolina minus 1.5 slam dunk, but looking deeper at just the recent trends, I don't know if that's the case. What do you got here?
Yeah, you never know with these Blackhawks. And I feel like they've been getting the best of me lately. I really don't like it. And I feel like the Canes are struggling on the road very quietly. Not Blue Jackets level per se, not Columbus, but they lost in Buffalo a few days ago. They lost in Tampa the last time they traveled before that. Nice win in Florida, and then they lost in Columbus before that. You get the point. They have a losing record. These Blackhawks 10-13 at home. Look out for a team with 15 wins on the season. It's a pretty good record.
Yeah,
and they just beat Vegas. They just beat Vegas at home. They held Edmonton to within 1 goal at home. Last Tuesday? Was that? Last Saturday? I know the days of the week, I swear.
Last week.
They beat the Avs at home recently. They beat the Canadiens at home recently. The Canadiens are playing really well. I'm kind of with you there. This one might not be as it seems. Initial gut reaction is to hop on Canes -1.5. I feel like that's the normal, common sense thing to do. I think I'm going to take Chicago +1.5 here. Don't trust them to win, but I think they can keep it tight. I'd like the over 5.5 as well. If they're going to keep it tight, it's probably going to be because they score 2 or 3 goals. So over 5.5 +1.5. I'm gonna roll with the Hawks.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't love it. It's not my favorite bet of the day by any means. But I like the Chicago Blackhawks +1.5 too. I said this back before the year started, and I think that I have been proven wrong for the most part, but I just don't trust this Carolina Hurricanes team the same way that I used to. I don't. I was talking to a buddy yesterday. He's predicting Carolina Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup Finals, and I just don't see that right now. Like, the goaltending is all over the place. Freddie Anderson's back. Very good goaltender, can't stay healthy. There's a big picture conversation with this Carolina team. I just don't really know what I'm looking at. Like, they're a very good team. They'll make the playoffs. They'll be top 3 in the division, probably. They'd have to really fall off a cliff to not be. But I don't know. I just don't trust this team right now. It's not that I trust Chicago either. I just I think the trends that you laid them out perfectly. So I'll take Chicago as well. +1.5 at +102. Moving on to the Winnipeg Jets in Utah, -162 of the Jets on the road. Utah +134. The -1.5 for the Jets is +138. +1.5 for Utah is -170. Over 5.5 is -122. Under is +100. I will lay this out very quickly. Utah's a sneaky team, man, when it comes to goal scoring. I know Winnipeg has one of the best defensive cores in the league. They have the best goaltender in the league, in my opinion. But Utah is just sneaky like that. I don't necessarily trust the -1.5 here. I do trust Winnipeg to score. No matter what the end result is, whether it's by 2 or more, whether it's by 1, whatever the end result is, I trust Winnipeg to score. That 5.5 at -122. I love it. That's one of my favorite bets for the night. I just want to pull this up real quickly. Winnipeg total goals over 3.5. Now, for Utah to score 4 goals and for the by 1, whatever. I don't know if the over 5.5. I like it a lot, but Winnipeg over 3.5 is +108, and I love that bet. Over 3.5 for Winnipeg at +108, and as always, Kyle Connor +130 to score. Mark Scheifele +170 to score. 2+ points. Kyle Connor +168. Mark Scheifele +220. Love those props. Every time this team steps on the ice. What do you got? Winnipeg, Utah.
Yeah, there's a lot of 5.5s today. Yeah. I'm not really buying most of them. This is another one. I'm taking that over. Just to be simple, I trust Winnipeg so much more than this Utah team. I know Utah's coming off a win. I know Winnipeg's coming off a loss. But just like what happened in November, I think the Jets are going to body them. So I'm going to take that Winnipeg -1.5 on the road.
Love it. Moving on to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh +155 on the road. Los Angeles Kings -188 at home. -1.5 +138. +1.5 for the Penguins -170. Over 5.5 -115. Under is -105. I'll take this one quickly too. First of all, Andre, save me. Why am I blanking on the goaltender for Pittsburgh? Yeah.
Djokovic? Oh, yeah. We didn't talk about him, did we?
Dude, that was insane. Only goaltender ever to get a goal and an assist in a single hockey game. That goal was sick. Like, that was a dope shot, and the team just went crazy. Absolutely loved it. I watched it live, and I didn't realize at the time that he also had a helper in the game. At my in-laws, like my father-in-law, it's a dope setup. I got like 4 TVs set up. There's basketball, there's hockey, there's everything going on. The volume was not on that TV, so I didn't catch a lot of those little nuances to the game, but huge moment for him. That being said, I think they're going to get stomped tonight. So good for him. You got the only goaltender in NHL history, a goal and an assist in a game. I think they're going to get pumped tonight. I think the Kings -1.5, plus 138. Listen, the Kings, they've been falling off a little bit, not in as dramatic fashion as last year, although this is around the time they fell off the map last year, right? So let's kind of see what happens over the next couple months. Pittsburgh, I'm pretty high, not high on Pittsburgh, but I'm not writing them off as easily as I was earlier in the season. I just think the Kings got a lot of emotion going on too right now, man. The whole thing going on down in LA. As we said before we took our week break, I know that the Fires seem to be more contained now, but we still send our best wishes to everybody down there and hope everybody is safe. The Kings, already a couple games canceled. Their first game back in Los Angeles since all this has progressed to what it was. I think it's an emotional night, man, and I just feel like the Kings are going to get up and just absolutely destroy the Penguins. I'm taking that -1.5 all day long. I kind of like the over 5.5 because I think they win like 6-1. Like, I don't know why. I'm just on this LA train. I just think they're going to just come out just absolutely gangbusters, as we say. As far as props, I have no idea what to ever do with props on this team. I feel like it's somebody different every single night. But I like the -1.5 for Los Angeles, and I like the over. What do you got?
Yeah, just like you, I expect a blowout here. The Kings are finally back home, which is awesome. They've been so dominant at home this season. 14-2-1, 194 goals against average, 3.41 goals for, plus 25 goal differential. Absolute domination. I expect that to continue against this Penguins team, which, as we said, they're streaky. They're on the wrong side of that right now. A bunch of not just losses, but multi-goal losses in their past 5, in their past 10 even. So taking the Kings -1.5 here. That's really my simple prescription for this one.
Yeah, I am all about it. All right. Let's move on to our best bets. Just want to remind everybody that we are on YouTube now. We always have been, but it is an official Pucks Across Borders YouTube page. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff that you hear from every single YouTube podcast. Just do the same with us. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're also... Oh, man, my bad. I didn't shout them out at all today. That's my fault. It's been a week off, getting back in motion. Total Apex Sports. We're still on their Twitter. Appreciate them for having us on board. Shout out to them. As the football playoffs slowly reach the end, the championship game tonight in college football. Lots of great content over on totalapexsports.com. Check them out. Shout out to them for having us on their Twitter page. And as always, best bets brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Right now with our promo code Sports Addict, get 10% off whatever sports card you want in the entire First Round Collectibles store. They have an ongoing sale up to 50% off. And with our promo code Sports Addict, not only do you get 10% off of regular price items, but sales items as well. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com today. I love this line from all these different like ad campaigns. Tell them we sent you with promo code Sports Addict, 10% off your order. Firstroundcollectibles.com, sports cards for sports fans. Andre, best bet for today. Quick little update. Boston 2-1 over the Sharks. Minus 530 now. The Bruins. That really turned quickly. Minus 530. A 1-goal deficit. Too much for the Sharks. Plus 360 for San Jose. Plus 1.5 for the Sharks. Hey, this isn't bad. Plus 1.5 for the Sharks is plus 110. Minus 1.5 for the Bruins is minus 144. The over is at 6.5 at minus 108, and the under is minus 120. Best bets for this MLK Day, NHL styles. What do you got?
Yeah, part of me wants to take like Keandre Miller goal and just run with it, but the Rangers don't play today. In all seriousness, I'm taking the over 5.5 in Columbus versus Islanders. You're telling me that a team like Columbus, they allow the second most goals per game on the road, 3.64. You got a team like the Islanders allowing 3.38 goals at home. That's 27th. Why should I trust that 5.5? Why should I trust that under? I shouldn't. No. Columbus just had a shutout performance really on the road, even though they lost that game. Didn't allow any goals in 60 minutes, didn't allow any goals in overtime. That's not going to happen again. They also got shut out, and that offense has been very productive this season. I don't think that's going to happen again either. I'm loving that over 5.5, and that is my best bet for today.
I am also taking an over 5.5, and we're going back to Utah. Winnipeg Jets in Utah, over 5.5, minus 122. We talked about this game just a few minutes ago. No need to get too heavy back into it. I love the Winnipeg Jets. I think Winnipeg Jets over 3.5 is another really good bet that I would highly recommend. This one's a little more simple. Over 5.5 total goals on the game at minus 122. Again, we just talked about it. Won't go too nerdy on it, but I love that bet for tonight. And I will say, I feel like I can speak for both of us. If you want to veto it, if you want to do something else, Andre, it's our show. You just tell me. I feel like Los Angeles minus 1.5 is the family play here.
Yeah, that was very high up on my list, so I'm all for that. The Sharks, though, just tied the game. Will Smith, not the actor, not the relief pitcher, not the other relief pitcher, but the San Jose Shark just tied the game.
Dude, that plus 1.5 at plus 110. I literally said it not even 60 seconds ago. And I hope one of our viewers out there quickly threw some change on it, because that's now all the way to minus 265. So how the tables have turned, how the turns have tabled. All right. Yeah, my brain is all over the place. All right. Over 5.5, Columbus Islanders is minus 120 on FanDuel. Over 5.5, Winnipeg, Utah, minus 122 on FanDuel. Los Angeles Kings minus 1.5 is plus 138. The parlay on FanDuel plus 693. What do you got, Mr. DK?
I have the over in Blue Jackets Islanders at minus 120, the over in Jets Hockey Club at minus 120, and the Kings puck line at plus 136. My parlay is also plus 693.
Wow.
You got a tie.
For the first time ever in 2024-25 Pucks Across Borders season. First time ever we tied.
Yeah. It's crazy. When you said that 693, I was stunned.
Amazing.
Absolutely
amazing. Well, everybody, this was one of the, speaking of first time ever this season, we've had a tie. This has to be one of the longest podcasts of the season. I know we did the World Juniors preview, but those were two separate shows. Yeah, very long show, but Most of you guys watching have been sticking with us for this whole show, so we really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. We will be back tomorrow again. Obvious reason why we started early was the games are early. That's just basic math. But tomorrow, again, later in the afternoon, we will be back with our Tuesday preview, and we should be back for the remainder of the week. I'm still moving, still getting things settled, but my schedule is a little bit back to normal, so we should be back at some point every day this week. Shout out Total Apex Sports for having us on board, totalapexsports.com. Check out all their football and basketball, baseball, lots of content over there. First round collectibles, promo code Sports Addict, 10% off your order. We will see you tomorrow.
Go hard.